see. All right, hey folks. Sorry, we had a fire drill, so we're starting a little late today.
They went outside too. Wait,
Yeah, seriously, you should know what to do in case of a fire at home. So I can't tell you how to do that because I'm not at your house. So
Is Owen on? Is Owen on?
there, it doesn't say who's on, right?
You know what Owen looks like, right? Owen's already
Just get the hose.
If I saw Owen, I
Is
would
he on there?
remember.
You wore the glasses.
I said I don't know. It didn't say who's on there. I'm using YouTube. I'm not using
Can I
Google.
look?
No, it doesn't say anybody.
No,
It
I
just-
mean,
It just says viewers.
I know what they look like though.
It's not showing their faces.
Oh my
It's YouTube.
I bet Owen went outside just
It's
because.
I'm giving the input. They're watching the input, but they can type in chat. Hey, all right, folks. So let's go ahead and hit it with chapter 2. So we had. I gave you some time to go over the chapter. Now it is. I put the terms up here as Jason, Troy, Odysseus, and Homer. What I want you to do is you can talk across the tables. You don't need to get up and move. But I'm going to give you a few minutes to talk about what you've read about these 4 things, as much as you can think of, with your neighbors. And then we're going to go ahead and start filling in information. I'll go over my images and all that good stuff, right?
Yep.
All right. So pick somebody to talk with. Did you have a question, Jaden? Okay. All right, let me get my handy dandy phone timer. So tabletop, talk to your neighbor.
Okay, so Jason from Destiny. My own request for the golden police officer on the 9 given back because he was in need. And then he was like, "Oh, you should go get the golden police." And then Jason was like, "Okay." And so then he went to the person who had the golden
Hey, what
police.
about other people? Y'all can talk.
Yeah, you're loud. You're giving everybody that.
Someone just
It was
talk
a-
to him.
It's a group discussion. We all just talked to each
You just went. You just went.
I drink a whole water bottle.
You drink a whole water bottle.
Wow, that's
I'll drink a
so
whole
much.
coffee pot. I'm okay.
Why?
On 1 to 10, how bad is it?
About a 2 probably.
No.
You can probably hold it for the rest of the class.
Yeah, it's not that
Mhm.
hard.
Yeah, I can't let you go every day. Then we have a panic. I miss class time. Hey, Jose, who are you talking with? You just might like yourself. All right, y'all still got a few minutes.
So,
Alright.
please,
I'm getting my mask. I'm getting my weird.
actually, you're gonna do some things. We're gonna pay my bowls, which just don't have to break the fire, and also put some teeth in some dirt, and then
Homer, he wrote
Yeah.
that guy movie.
does the do, and when he plants this, before that, his girlfriend helps him tame the bulls, and then he gets their teeth, and then he just kind of plops them in the dirt, and then boom, people come out, and they're all like, "Oh yeah, let's kill people." And so he yeets a stone, and not everyone's like, "Who threw that rock?" And they all kill each other, and then he gets the face. And then Troy was just the fallen city that fell against Greece.
Jade, you gotta have your mask on if he's that close to you.
Odysseus,
Go ahead.
part of the
Yeah, put your mask on.
and
We all have to do it.
had a
Well,
rough time getting.
we all have our feelings, but there's rules, right? And you
I don't
gotta-
wear mine in Walmart.
Oh, neither.
I'm not Walmart.
We're gonna just don't make eye contact.
You're not wearing your mask.
I'm 6 feet apart.
This old woman said something to my mom this morning about not wearing a mask.
Who wrote
Sorry.
She just
poems
she
and
said, well, if my head mask works, then I shouldn't have to wear it.
people liked it.
I mean, she said if your head mask works, then I shouldn't have to wear it.
The end.
So,
That was my story.
and then she said, if you don't want to, I'm going to do it. So there you go.
I'll just say, if they ask me what we ask you, I'll just say, oh, it's in the car. I'll just have to go there. And I say, and can you say, oh, this is not the car.
Jane, are you talking about the story?
Yeah.
No, yeah, wait.
One of the
Well, we're
stories?
talking about, well, yeah.
So it's Jason,
Four feet.
Troy, Odysseus, or Homer.
I didn't even get that far.
Jason.
It was your
Or-
fault. That
It's
was
a-
your assignment. Your assignment was to read chapter 2.
I was reading, but then we had that stupid drill.
You're supposed to read it before today.
It was homework. It's homework to read.
Yeah, I didn't
Oh,
know
it's
that.
homework? You didn't tell us that.
Yeah,
It is every day we have a.
Whenever I
chapter
put a
read
chapter up
homework.
here, you're supposed to read it before we come in.
Oh.
Well, if we weren't here, then how are we supposed to, how would we know?
Bring your book home. Or it's posted on Google Classroom.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, I read the whole thing right now, so.
Okay, well, we're gonna talk about it. But yeah, if I start getting the feeling I've had to do this in years prior, if people aren't reading the chapters, I had to start giving assignments out to make sure you're reading the chapters. So don't make me do that. That's not how this course is supposed to run out. You're supposed to have some personal responsibility, right? Right. Big people, big responsibilities. All right, but for now, all right, back to your table. Thank you for donning your fantastic mask. Hey, Jaden, if I see that your ear again, I'm going to have to own it.
Oh,
Yeah, and I don't want to own other people's earwax. All right.
it's not, I clean my ears.
Okay.
You
but-
can look inside of it.
I don't want to look inside your earwax stuff. All right.
Nah, this one kid named Adrian that I knew in like second grade, it literally looked like cobwebs in his ear. It
There's
was
this kid named
nasty.
Israel.
Israel.
He literally cannot hear anything. His earwax come off. It's half of his ears full of earwax inside.
There are medical problems for people who get a lot of that. But hey,
I've offered him several Q-tips. He won't take them.
okay.
He's missing
So
out.
moving on to the real thing for the day. So first off, here we have a statue of Jason. So Jason is another one of those mythological kings.
Why does he look?
Well, let's hold up. Remember,
Probably,
if I'm talking, you gotta raise your hand if you have a question. So instructor's talking, you can't talk, right? So if you're talking, I'll give you your time. So let me just go over this real quick, and then I'll give you time to talk with me about it. So remember, we were talking about last time, we were talking about mythological kings, and here's another one, Jason of Thessaly. And so he's another one of those mythological kings who goes on an adventure story. And to go on his adventure, that's how he becomes a man. That's how he gets his kingdom. That's how he, like his evil uncle said, he got a taste for life so that he can move on from being a little boy. And so this is, it's like a rite of passage. You have to do this so that you are no longer a child. And so, and after he's no longer a child, he can be a king and he can take on his responsibilities. But yeah, part of it is being strong. And though he was strong, he needed help. He was brave, still needed help. So he had his friends here, the Argonauts. Now, why were they called Argonauts?
Because they went on Argo.
Yeah, Argo was the maker of
Ship.
the ships, yeah. And so this is important for Greek people because remember, they lived around all of that ocean water. And so sailing and being on boats meant a lot to them. They got to fish, they got to trade, they got to go do pirate stuff, they got to travel, all kinds of cool things. And so Argos is known as like the mythological creator of really good seaworthy Greek boats, right? And we're going to talk more about Greek boats later, like when we start talking about the triremes and stuff like that. So this, for some reason, this is out of place. This is actually from a Greek vase, and on the left, that's Helen of Troy, and on the right, that's Paris.
Oh, it's before he kidnaps her and takes her away.
Yeah, this is when he's kind of like seducing her, right? So she's married to the king of Sparta, Menelaus, and she does fall in love with him, but she doesn't want to, and then he kidnaps her. Yeah, brings her to Troy, and so that's how Troy gets attacked. But when you read Homer, you'll find there was other reasons that Troy was attacked. The Trojans were impious; they betrayed their gods and stuff like that. Now, this is actually this is back to Jason. So on the right-hand side, that's Jason, and on the left, this is the princess Medea. And Medea is kind of special because she's kind of human and she's kind of not. She's actually related to these pre-gods in the Greek pantheon called Titans. And because of that, she knows sorcery. And
Which
But- yeah,
Overblood.
but the thing is here, once again, he represents bravery, strength, going on adventure, and she's the one who's giving him counsel, advice, and wisdom, and she knows the answers to the problems, right, that he has coming in front of him. So you see these two different things where they're complementing each other, but it's also there are two parts of how everyone's supposed to approach a problem. You have to be brave, so you got to think about it too, right? And so here he is in front of the sleeping dragon, and he's cutting down the golden fleece. And so, and there's lots of different things on what the dragon can represent. In Western culture, which we live in, dragons tend to represent kind of like evil. They represent danger. They represent an obstacle in between you and treasure, right? So you have to do something dangerous sometimes and hard, and you might fail, but if you succeed in that, there's something great on the other side. And here we have the golden fleece. Now, what's funny is like golden fleece it's supposed to symbolize that treasure, but it's later on at the end of the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, it's going to represent. There's going to be a special rich kid club that only like kings are part of. It's called the Order of the Golden Fleece, and it was supposed to be for like alchemists, because alchemy used to be a really, really big thing.
Let's turn things into gold. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was part of it. But yeah, alchemy was kind of like running nowhere because it's not real. So
What was so special about the golden fleece? Why not have some power?
I don't know. I really
Came
don't
from
know.
mean sheep that did.
No, I think you're right. I think it was supposed to have some kind of magic or something. I
It
don't know.
was a healing power. I'm not sure.
If we want to go into Jackson,
Percy Jackson's pretty good.
I mean, if you
Not the movies.
everything was
So that last painting.
Read the books.
Yeah.
Good.
Hey,
I
folks.
said not the movies. The movies are terrible.
Hey, so folks. All right, so the last painting, that was more like a Renaissance painting. This one is, once again, from an ancient Greek base. So here, their idea of the dragon was more like a serpent, see? It's more like a snake. So like dragons take different forms for different cultures. And here he is, he's like, I got the golden fleece. So he's chopping it off the tree. This is Medea all sad because after he grabs the golden fleece, she fell in love with him, but he kind of left. So she was left all alone. Poor Medea. I don't think so. I don't remember that. So there are stories like that. All right, so moving on to Homer. So here's a scene from the Iliad. Here you have Odysseus, and the men are being called, especially like he wasn't just a regular guy. You could think of him as an aristocrat, like a noble, right? He was, I guess, kind of the king of where he was from. And so, I forgot what that was. And so he's called upon to go to war because the Greek word for kings in Homer is not just their standard word for king, which I forgot. It's actually basileus, which means the war leader, right? So he's a war chief, and he's being called to go to war. So he's like, I really don't want to do this. Odysseus is known as being smart and tricky, and so he pretends to be crazy. You see, he has here they put a cow, but it's supposed to be an ox, and a horse together. Well, they're not supposed to go together on these because they both pull in different ways. They're different heights, different strengths and speeds, so it winds up not plowing straight lines. They probably hurt each other. And so what do?
There's the baby.
Yeah, they lay the child down, and they're like, well, if he's crazy, he'll mow over the child. If he's not crazy, he'll turn away.
And
And
he
so-
turned away.
He turned away.
Lost his-
They called his bluff.
No, it's alive. He lives.
This is the king of Sparta, Menelaus. So Menelaus is the husband of Helen. And the thing is, though, the Spartans here, they're actually from a different tribe than the Spartans who are going to be around. Think of like the Spartan 300 and stuff like that. Because these guys are, I think, they're Achaeans, and they're going to be ran out by the Dorians. So they're kind of like how in America, one Native American tribe will run out another Native American tribe. Hey guys, attention up here, please. Can y'all put those up? That's kind of distracting me. Jay, can you put those up? That's distracting. So, yeah, so he's going to be like, hey, they stole my wife, which is a bad deal. And it's not just the wife, but here's the thing.
She's the most beautiful girl in the world.
That, and to ancient societies, marriage was like a contract between two countries.
Yeah.
Marriage was a big deal. And so by taking her, they were also undoing essentially a peace deal between other countries. So this is like an international crisis in a lot of ways, right? A lot of times to keep peace between two nations, kings might marry one another's like daughters or something like that, you know? So that kind of thing would happen, especially back when you have people who were into polygamy, right? Like in the Old Testament of the Bible, you might have a king with a bunch of wives or something like that. All right, so here's Agamemnon. This is known as the death mask of Agamemnon. So this is like kind of gold foil. Death masks are common in the ancient world. Like if you ever look at King Tut's burial tomb, like he had a death mask and he had a sarcophagus where they put his mummy bones. So this is actually from an archaeological dig where they think this, they're not sure if it's really from the King Agamemnon. They call it the Mask of Agamemnon. And what's funny is they actually have found Troy. The guy known as the father of archaeology, his name was Heinrich Schliemann. He was a wealthy German business owner. And all of these historians were like, Troy wasn't real. It was a myth. People made it up. Well, this guy, he studied maps, he studied ancient sources, and he actually found the ruins. And it's in the western part of the country today we call Turkey. So they're still finding things today from ancient Greeks. So that's the thing. There might be a lot of make-believe in ancient stories, but there's also a lot of legit stuff too. So here's a vase depicting Achilles dragging the body of Hector in victory. And so
We're just dishonoring the dead.
it was, but of course he will bury him in a tomb. So what often happens in the Iliad when you read it, whenever you have a duel, and so a duel usually between the nobles, like the aristocracy, and then whenever the Greeks win, they wind up looting the body. So they take all their arms and armor and stuff like that. And Achilles, it did kind of like a victory lap here, dragging the body of Hector. It's like,
And then all of the Trojans up on the wall are like,
well, this is the thing too. This is one of the differences between our culture and Greek culture. You're going to notice that they brag all the time. Whenever they have a
we beat
victory,
you, now we're gonna burn your city.
they rub it in. Yeah. So they talk about.
How is that different from our culture?
There's, well, we kind of are
We kinda
supposed to
don't
frown
drag
on
our
it.
corpses along
That's
the
bad
chariots.
taste, right?
Supposed to.
That's bad sportsmanship.
Yeah.
It's distasteful too. Like even whenever like we win, even like whenever American forces win a battle, and we usually like don't take our POWs and just tell them how bad they stink, you know, after they lost and stuff like that, like prisoner of war. So that's bad taste. These ancient Greeks didn't quite think of it that way. Later on, though, you're going to start seeing the development of, once again, that the idea of where a Greek is supposed to acknowledge their limitations. Remember we talked about that. So this is not Penelope. What's her name again? Her name is.
Hang on.
That's how ancient people did that. Like, especially like some countries still do that, like China. Like they whenever before a child's potty trained, they won't let them wear diapers. They just kind of let them
So
on the floor and they clean up the floor. Yeah, well, I mean, when you think about it, like pre-washing machines and stuff like that, and diapers, that's tough business. I mean, what we gotta do? All right, so this is Andromache, I think, or Andromache is whatever her name is. She was the wife of Hector, and so whenever Troy was toppled, all the women were taken prisoners,
and they
all the
became
men
slaves.
and most of the children were killed. And that's one thing you find often
Wasn't
in
like one of
ancient
the
societies. Yeah.
wasn't one of the children like thrown off like the top of a tower in Troy and made the other mom watch?
Well, yes. When she's thinking about what will happen in the loss, and this happened a lot in the Near East too, like the Assyrians and people like that. The idea behind it was so that you wouldn't have these kids grow up and want revenge, right, for what happened to their people. So it was cruel. And so, yeah, they were taken as slaves, the survivors. And like I've told you on our first day, that some of the things that used to be normal throughout history, slavery, farming, illiteracy, women not having really hardly any rights. That's what was normal throughout most time. What we're living through now, where people are more humane in all these things and more responsible and equal, and it's not normal throughout, speaking historically. This is a painting. It's supposed to be the blind poet Homer. He's got his harp strapped on his back. He's got a boy trying to lead him down the path, and pretty much how these they're kind of like, I guess you could call them bards. How they would make their living was going from city to city, and they would do things kind of like like a street musician.
But street poet.
Yeah, street poet, right? And so they're kind of a beggar, kind of not. They're hoping to get in the house of kind of like a well-to-do, wealthy person, like a king or something, and they're hoping that their story is so good that they tell that they get food and maybe some money and stuff like that and places to stay. So yeah, they were like traveling minstrels, and you're going to see this throughout all the way through the Middle Ages too, where you can have these performers do this. But this is going to be around all the way into the 20th century, like in Eastern Europe and Russia and places like that, or parts of Russia, where you have these people who know these long poems or songs that have historical or mythological stuff. And they go around and they tell it. And that's how they make their living. And they're supposed to, usually, a lot of times they find that it'll stay very accurate and the same throughout the centuries.
So they're marked.
No.
And we missed the guy's arm. It was crazy. In the background. His arm was like really long. Like an elbow by the wrist here.
Here we have the Trojan horse, yeah, being dragged in.
I thought it was made of wood.
Yeah. Well, I think well, let's think about painters. It's like they can take their own license to do what they want to do, right?
It was very fancy. It was so fancy. It looked like a real horse.
Well, this one is pretty real. That's pretty legit.
It just looked like a giant horse.
Yeah.
Pushed by some people.
I can kind of see some paneling on the head or something like that. But yeah, so they bring it in because they were tricked. And then in the middle of the night, the warriors slip out like ninjas and open the gates.
They just kill everybody.
Yeah. And then it was.
I remember it was in like a book, the book that we read. It was called like less of a battle and more like a slaughter because like no one had time to prepare.
Well, this kind of thing happens all the time, even in like slipping into the enemy city and getting your way in. It's like a goal in sieges, right? You make a lot of different attempts when you're sieging a city, and that's one of those attempts. Because yeah, it's like you got the city for free, because a siege can last for years. Like when they're saying like the siege of Troy lasted 9 years, yeah, often whenever an army would try to take a walled city, they're essentially they're trying to attack, they're trying to make holes. A lot of times they got to starve them until they quit. So, and that's tough. That's a long, drawn out thing.
You know what would have been funny? They lit the horse on fire.
Horse on fire.
Well, they thought it was like what's it called?
They thought it was
Like,
sacred, right?
Yeah, so they were like, let's not destroy it. Let's keep it so we'll get the good part for ourselves.
So they burned,
Yeah.
They burned the incense. They burned the horse.
There you go.
They're gonna pull a brazen bull on them.
So the war doesn't last forever. We know, spoiler alert, the Greeks win, so the Achaeans win. And if you ever want to read about what's supposed to happen when Troy falls, you have to read a later book called the Aeneid. It was written by a guy named Virgil. and he writes about like the earthquakes and the tidal waves and the fires and the pillaging and all that stuff. Because in the Odyssey, again by Homer, he points out that the Greeks kind of made the Greek gods mad, and one of those people who made
So all the
mad
gods
was-
kind of ganged up on them and tried to kill them.
well, they're fickle. Remember, the Greek gods aren't good guys. They're just kind of crazy.
They're very emotional.
They are. It's like you have crazy people who need medication, don't have it, and
They
they're
will-
controlling
and they
their
will-
life.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same.
But yeah, Odysseus, he runs afoul with Helen. She doesn't like him very much, but he's trying to get home, so he has to go through all of this crazy journey. And they say the Odyssey, which is named after Odysseus, is supposed to be kind of like the story of people's lives, right? You go through all of these different various kinds of trials and temptations, and he overcomes a lot of temptations so that he can come back and be with his family, but also eventually die in peace in an honorable way instead of kind of caving in and trying to live like a child forever and things like that. So, and of course, one of those is we have where he's like having to get away from the Cyclops. And so him and his men wind up blinding the Cyclops and pretending they're sheep so that they can get away from him. You also have the trial of the Sirens. So he has to guide his men. Yeah, they're deaf, right? So he has to be the one who guides them through these things, but he's driven crazy while it's happening. And so they have to listen to
He
him.
wants to live to hear the siren song. So he like tied himself up. Well, he told his men to tie him up so he could hear it and live. I thought the siren were like, I thought they were like half person, half fish, not half person. Half bird.
It's half bird.
Those are more like harpies.
I guess so. But yeah, the Sirens in the Odyssey are half bird women.
They're fish.
Here we go. He's guiding his men out of the cave. They've already blinded the Cyclops. See, he's like wiggling
The
like
guy
under
in
the
the
sheep.
sheep.
He's counting his sheep. See, he's padding. He's like 1 sheep, 2 sheep, 3 sheep. So he's telling his man, "Hey, get under the sheep. Crawl out of here."
Get under the sheep. Get under the sheep.
Which is better than being eaten by the Cyclops.
Where's that guy that's under the sheep?
He looks so uncomfortable.
I've seen him.
It looks like Frodo.
Yeah.
They like Frodo face.
Reminds me of that guy from Megamind, where it's like that ginger kid who becomes like a super villain.
That dude flossing.
He flops.
This is Penelope. This is the wife of Odysseus. And so what you have going on here is she's here doing what a dutiful wife would do in the absence of her. Yeah, she's spinning at the loom because,
Or any of those guys.
Oh, those are all her suitors.
yeah, these are the guys who are trying to marry her because she, the wife of a king, the king's been gone for years, like 10 plus years. And so you got all these guys who are like, hey, you know he's dead, right? Marry me so I can be rich, please. And so she's ignoring them. She's doing her duty. She's being a good Greek wife. And they're kind of being bums. They're living off of her house.
All of
Like they're not even married.
So there's
None
yeah.
of them-
All of them look like girls.
Okay. So
Not gonna lie.
Most of the guys in Greek mythology.
they're trying to bribe her in a sense. They're like, hey, look at
Why'd
me.
you pick those flowers out of land?
But don't worry.
You killed
Odysseus is going to come home, yeah, and he's going to shoot them with his bow. Him and his son. And then he helps establish his son as king. You're going to find that it's one thing about the Odyssey is there's characters here that kind of signify the ideal person. Like Penelope is the ideal wife. Odysseus is the ideal husband. He's always faithful because he's always trying to get home. He's trying to get away from all these temptations. His son is dutiful to him. He's trying to get rid of these suitors. He can't do it by himself. He needs his dad's guidance. And then when his dad helps him out, he's able to take the throne. When he comes in, he gets the help of one of his ideal servants, who even though when he's gone, he realizes that these guys are bad. He's just a pig farmer. He's got nothing going on, but he still tries to help out the best he can. So it's kind of like a story of life. Hey, Now, I think because we ran over, we're going to come in and we're going to get our notes tomorrow.
Is it time to go?
So, no, not yet.
Oh,
Not
I
yet.
was gonna say, what?
So
No way.
keep these things in mind. When we come in, I'm going to go ahead and put the notes up. So you can just write, when we come in after a warm up, I'll give you some time to write the notes
Did you
down.
read the chapter tonight?
I'd like you to read chapter 3. I can't guarantee we're going to go through all of chapter 3 tomorrow, but yes, I want you to read chapter 3. So we will take some stops,
I mean, that is.
but if you ever want to get ahead, in fact, if you want to, I'm about to, so I hope you don't have your earbud in because I will take it from you. But if you want to, you can go ahead and start now and going over chapter 3. I'll give you the end of the class. So, right now. All right, folks, we're going to stop the stream now. If you have any questions, please send me a message. We're going to talk about chapter 3 tomorrow. And whenever I put the notes on the board, I'll take a picture tomorrow and post that up for you as well. Bye.
And he doesn't take it out.